Hits Her Head, a Miraculous Ladybug fanfiction, written and narrated by Christina Chang. Chapter 14, A New Lens. Trapped. It was the one word that stood out clearly from the muddled mess in her mind, the one thing that stayed true no matter what timeline she started. She was trapped. Trapped in a nightmare that repeated over and over no matter what she tried differently. The same thing always happened. It seemed every direction she went was met with more drones, more blasts, and ended with Cat Noir evaporating into oblivion. She couldn't give up, but she couldn't win. There was no hope. She would be trapped in this nightmare forever. Second chance. Ladybug squeezed her eyes shut to hide her tears and began tugging Cat Noir's arm in the direction of the safest alleyway. "Come on, we don't have much time. We have to—" "Ladybug," Cat Noir said softly, easily resisting her efforts to move him, forcing her to stand still and look back at him in surprise. "How many times has it been?" Ladybug froze, countless scenes and a flood of emotions rushing through her mind as she struggled to come up with an answer. "I don't know. 2,000, 10,000, does it matter?" "Oh, m'lady." Ladybug stood stunned for a moment as Cat Noir folded her into an embrace, then felt her walls cave in as she allowed herself to be buried in his arms and fought down the urge to cry. "I failed so many times." "No, Ladybug, no. You didn't fail. You saved me. You saved me. I'm still here because of you. We're gonna get through this." "But what if this is fate? What if this is the time I lose you? And no matter what I do, I just have to watch you die over and over again." Cat Noir squeezed her tighter, remembering the times that same fear had echoed through his heart. "We're gonna get through this," he repeated, his voice strengthening as he added, "We'll figure this out. Now here's what you're going to do. You're gonna go back before anything bad happens, and I'm gonna help you come up with a plan, okay?" "No!" She clung to him tighter, and his heart broke as he could feel her shaking with fatigue and worry, accompanied by warm tears that landed against his suit. "It's not okay, Cat Noir, it's not. I can't do this alone, and you keep... Her voice broke and she choked against a new rush of sobs. Cat Noir stared down at her helplessly, then gently rested his head atop hers as he held her close and rocked softly side to side. Her cries lessened into quiet sniffs, and Cat Noir waited as long as he dared before saying as tenderly as he could, "It's time, m'lady. You'll make it. I know you will. And when you go back, I'll be right there beside you." Lady Aspis breathed in steadily, her heart slowly settling as she trusted in the surety of her partner's words and found comfort in the warmth of his smile. "Thanks, Cat Noir." He winked and she felt her spirits lift, then shatter, as a blast of laser fire burst through the window and obliterated every inch of the treasured boy before her into wisps of pixelated smoke. "No!" Ladybug screamed, her eyes snapping open as she was transported back to her previous surroundings that seemed to stem from a lifetime ago. "Well, guess there's—" Cat Noir began, before his eyes took in her distress and his voice softened. "Hey, are you okay?" Lady Aspis shoved him away. She couldn't take it anymore. "Just go that way!" She pushed him in the direction opposite of where the first drones would appear, then swung herself up into the sky. "Ladybug, wait!" She ignored him, trying desperately to block out his calls as she leapt up to the rooftop, half blinded by tears, not even sure where her feet were taking her. But she didn't care. She just had to get away before she watched him die again. Lady Aspis swung through the city streets, their shadows almost as dark as her heart felt, when she caught sight of a golden glow and noticed a familiar face glancing worriedly out the window. Lady Aspis stopped short. "Alya?" Her eyes landed on the dark frames decorating the girl's face, and the answer suddenly clicked. Without a second thought, she swung into the window and crumpled to the ground as she succumbed to a current of heart-wrenching sobs. Alya quickly knelt beside her and wrapped her in a hug. Hey, what's going on?" Lady Aspis was crying too hard to speak, surprised she still had so much left to cry after everything she'd been through. But here in the warm light of Alya's bedroom and the comforting presence of her friend, she felt almost safe. and it was a relief to finally let all of the weakness and sorrow roll off her shoulders and dissipate through the silvery tears that streamed down her face. Alya held her quietly for a moment, then reached for her hand as Alya's sharp eye took in the small bracelet and the added elements to her suit. "You're using the snake Miraculous? How many times has it been?" Lady Aspis felt her cries growing dimmer as she sniffed and replied wearily, "Too many." "What? And only this time you thought to come to your amazing BFF for help?" Alya exclaimed, playfully throwing her arms out in exaggerated disbelief, then quickly paused and asked, "This is the first time, right?" Lady Aspis let out a small laugh as she said sheepishly, "Yes, it is." Alya breathed a sigh of relief. "Oh good, I thought so, but—" She cut herself off as her eyes hardened into focus. "What do you need, Ladybug?" "I was hoping you could tell me," Lady Aspis replied, holding up the Lucky Charm glasses. Alya lifted them quizzically, then brightened. "Well, obviously they were telling you to come find me, so you must need the power of illusion and my brilliant personal charm in order to take down whoever's controlling those drone things." Lady Aspis grinned as Alya's energetic confidence washed onto her and gave her strength to her spirit once more. "You should probably go back, though. That way we can start from the beginning and have more time to come up with a plan." Lady Aspis nodded, her hand already moving to her wrist as she had done countless times before. But this time was different. This time, they had a chance. Ladybug eagerly snuck Cat Noir with her into the small apartment undetected, and it only took minutes for Alya to see a solution that should have been standing right in front of them. "Well, the drones are tech, right? And as I regrettably found out last night when Etta—" She turned to glare at the door, then continued, "decided to spill her soda all over my tablet. Electronics tend to stop working after they get wet." "No way, it can't be that easy," Cat Noir scoffed, though his eyes widened with hope. "Do you really think Shadow Moth would forget to waterproof the drones? I mean, I've had toy drones that say they're waterproof." Alya shrugged. "The guy seems pretty dense. I mean, if I had the Butterfly Miraculous, I would have just given myself the power to force everyone to obey anything I said, and this whole battle nonsense wouldn't even be happening." "Wow, remind me to never let you join up with him," Lady Aspis said teasingly, while Alya smirked. "As if, girl. If anything, I'd kick him out and start running the show myself, but I'm way too loyal to hero work to ever turn villain on you." Lady Aspis smiled, though it quickly faded as she grew serious. "But back to the point, there's thousands of drones. Even if that worked, we'd never be able to get them all. Unless we caught them all at once." Lady Aspis shared a glance with Cat Noir, then turned back to Alya skeptically. "How would we do that?" "With this," Alya said, sliding her thumb along the chain at her neck and pulling the pendant into plain view. "It's simple. We have free access to tons of polluted electro-frying water right here at the Sen. All we have to do is get the drones to fall into it, which I can do by creating an illusion, so they think they're chasing you down another alleyway, when really they're diving head first into the water." "That's brilliant!" Cat Noir exclaimed, but Lady Aspis touched her chin thoughtfully. "Even if this works, what about the villain controlling them? Whoever it is calls himself the Happy Camper, and has been camping out this whole time. With all of his defenses gone, there's even less chance that he'll show up, and we'll have no way of finding his Akuma." Cat Noir shook his head. "It doesn't matter. With the drones gone, we won't have to worry about getting blown up every 2 seconds, and we can take as long as we need to find him." Cat Noir is right. Getting rid of the drones is our first priority, and this camper guy definitely won't be happy after they all disappear. Alya called up her hero transformation, then laid a hand on Lady Aspis' shoulder. "We'll find him." Lady Aspis smiled gratefully as her 2 friends stared back at her confidently. Then the 3 heroes crept out onto the roof and surveyed the city below. It didn't take long for Rena to set her illusions into place, and soon thousands of drones whizzed down alleyways and street corners, unknowingly drawing closer to the edge of the long river and their potential doom. Lady Aspis' hand hovered over the switch on her wrist, ready to flick it back and try something else if the drones remained intact after getting wet. Please work. Please work. All at once, the night was filled with flickering sparks and buzzes as the drones crashed full speed into the water, and loud splashes echoed back onto the shore. Too intent on catching their prize, they pressed on, full speed, heedless of the danger as more and more drones pummeled into the river, until the splashing finally stopped. Lady Aspis stared at the banks in disbelief as bits of metal and fragmented circuit boards floated to the surface. The streets were strangely quiet, and it took her a moment to realize the explosions that had been bombarding her eardrums and ringing throughout her head had finally ceased. "No!" A high-pitched wail broke the calm, and Lady Aspis immediately reached for her yo-yo as a small figure burst out of the darkness and began running back and forth before the river in dismay. "Not again! No! Everything is gone! I lost it all!" Marinette had dreamed of this moment. Throughout the torturous attempts that must have stretched out into weeks, there had been one sole objective on her mind: to find this villain, break his Akuma, and pay him back for all the pain and heartbreak he had inflicted her with. In the fleeting moments between times as she flicked her wrist and willed herself not to think of Cat Noir's most recent demise, she grit her teeth and pictured the beautiful, horrible reckoning she would bestow on the person so selfish and so cruel as to join Shadowmoth and destroy everything she held dear. Marinette was angry, but Ladybug was deadly. With her powers, she was stronger than any person alive, and with the right use of force could cause even solid metal to bend and break. What's more, she had justice on her side, and a miraculous cure that would undo any damage caused. No one would blame her if she didn't pull her punches and let the villain feel a taste of the suffering he'd brought to her and the rest of the city. A city that would never know since he'd already erased any witnesses. Now he was defenseless, helpless, and at her mercy. His feeble armor no match for her cutting yo-yo and superior strength, and his dreaded drone sinking deeper into the sand, out of reach and out of range. Lady Aspis tightened her fist, her steps sure and determined as she made her way to the water where the villain still moaned and paced in despair. She narrowed her gaze, summoning up all the anger and frustration that had been festering inside her, and feeding into the heightened energy that pulsed through her veins, her eyes never leaving the source of her misery. Yet as she drew closer, her anger faded, and she felt a strange pity and kindred sympathy with the former camper as she began to register his words and realized how young her opponent truly was. The boy looked to be about 11 and was wringing his hands and clutching his head in anguish as he collapsed to his knees by the riverside. Lady Aspis stole up quietly, wary in case he showed any signs of aggression, but instead he just wailed uncontrollably, and her eyes soon moved to the darkened game controller lying forgotten by his side. With one definitive swipe, she swung out a kick, and it gave a satisfying crunch as she squashed the object beneath her heel and crushed it deeper into the ground. A black butterfly flew out and was quickly captured and released from the purifying confines of her yo-yo. Without wasting a moment, she threw up the Lucky Charm glasses, and soon joyful shouts were heard all across Paris as the fires went out and people were reunited with their families. Sass, Tiki, divide. She breathed a sigh of relief as a tremendous weight lifted from her shoulders, and the blue diamonds faded to reveal red and black once more. Ladybug turned her attention back to the boy who was still crouched mournfully on the sidewalk. "It's not fair," he muttered, wiping a sleeve across his face as he sniffed bitterly. Ladybug knelt down beside him. "What's not fair?" He glared at her, but it quickly twisted into sadness as he stared miserably back down toward the concrete. "My game. I spent months doing challenges and building up my entire world, but then the system crashed and I lost all my progress, my treasures, my rank, everything. It's all lost and there's no way to replace it." He gripped his head angrily and his voice darkened. "Everyone kept saying it was no big deal, get over it. But they have no idea how it feels. No big deal? How would they feel if everything they loved got erased? How would they feel if their entire life and everything they knew was suddenly lost forever?" Ladybug looked down, the words resonating with her more than she expected. "I know what that's like. Everything I knew got erased too." The boy looked up in surprise. "Really?" Ladybug nodded solemnly. "Yeah. When I lost my memory, in the game I mean," she hastily added, "it was as if my whole life was suddenly empty, and whatever I'd accomplished before meant nothing now. It was like I lost a part of myself, and I don't know if I'll ever get back to the place I was." "Exactly," he replied numbly, his eyes growing dull and far away as he said, "I was on one of the highest levels possible. I had tons of elite resources and everyone respected me. And now, I'm just a nobody with nothing to show for it. All the people I used to play with have such a higher advantage now, and I have to relearn all the basic stuff all over again. Ladybug listened sympathetically, then placed a tentative hand on the boy's arm. I know how hard starting over can be, and at first you wonder if it's even worth it. When you lose so much, it seems impossible to ever find that same joy and sense of purpose. But it's not. He glanced up doubtfully, but in his eyes was a trace of hope. She looked over at Cat Noir and Rena Rouge, who had come to stand nearby, then turned her attention back to the boy. You haven't lost everything. You still have all your knowledge and experience. And more than that, you're still yourself. Everything that made you a great gamer before still exists in you now, and those skills will help you counter challenges faster than any noob ever could. As for your fellow players, if they're true friends, they'll stick by you till you get your ranks back, and maybe even help rebuild your world. But even if they don't, that doesn't have to stop you from pursuing the things you love. Ladybug's gaze wandered to her partner, who was smiling encouragingly, and she felt a part of herself settle that she didn't realize had been struggling. Maybe this is a chance for a new start. A chance to build a new life outside of the old game. The boy scoffed, but grew quiet as she continued. Think about it. We gamers can get pretty set in our ways and comfortable in the routine of imaginary worlds we build for ourselves. And while having fun is good, it might be holding us back from something new. She nudged the boy's shoulder with hers as her eyes twinkled knowingly. Maybe even better. Cat Noir crept closer and settled down beside them. You know, I definitely have a lot of experience playing video games too. I used to spend hours trying to conquer all the levels and upgrade my characters. But now, I don't really play video games anymore. The boy tilted his head with a mixture of shock and disbelief. You don't? Why not? Cat Noir smiled. Well, now I have friends and focus more on school and activities outside my house. And you know what? I'm having way more fun now than I ever did stuck in my room at home. Especially since now I get to fight super tough bosses in real life, like the one you were. The boy grinned as Cat Noir punched his shoulder playfully, then lowered his head as he said quietly, But what if it's hard to make friends? Cat Noir smiled understandingly. It was pretty hard for me to make friends at first too. But then I met Ladybug and some other really cool people, and we get along really well. The best advice is to just be yourself. And don't be afraid to open up to people. Besides, even if you seem to fail the first time, maybe you just need to give yourself a second chance, Ladybug added, sharing a knowing look with Cat Noir as they helped the boy to his feet. So, you really think I can have as much fun in real life as I do playing video games? Absolutely, Cat Noir responded eagerly. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoy playing video games now and then, but they're not the most important thing anymore. Time spent in real life is much harder to erase, and way more rewarding in the long run. Plus, it's way less stressful. Speak for yourself, Ladybug said dryly, but she couldn't help smiling as she remembered her own frustrations trying to play Ultimate Mega Strike against her dad a few nights ago, and had to admit it did feel pretty close. I hate to break it to you guys, but we gotta go. Rena Rouge stepped out of the shadows and motioned to her necklace, which was flashing warningly. Cat Noir turned back to the boy. Can you find your way home from here? The boy smiled. Yeah, I live right there. He pointed to an apartment located above a small tinker shop, and Ladybug's eyes widened as she read the sign in the window. Home of the Happy Camper? Best gamer in Paris? How did we miss this? The boy furrowed his brow in confusion. Wait, that wasn't there before. Someone must have just put that up. Suddenly the door opened and a little girl came running out into the street, hardly glancing at the heroes as she ran up to the boy and buried her face in his shirt as she folded him in a tight hug. Claire? I'm sorry you lost your game, Curtis, but I still think you're the best gamer ever, and you can play on my world if you want. The boy smiled as he wrapped his arm around his sister. Thanks, Claire. How about I show you that secret level you asked me about? The girl's face brightened as she looked up in surprise. Really? You would? Let's go! Ladybug smiled as she watched the pair run back into the house, then swung back to Alya's room to rejoin the others. Pound it! Alya recalled her transformation and shot a wink at Cat Noir. So, I guess you know my identity now, huh, you sly cat? Ladybug turned to him curiously. I thought you already knew her identity. You were the one who said the fox holder and I were close enough for me to trust her with the Miraculous permanently. Alya sent a piercing gaze at the black-clad hero. What? Cat Noir touched his neck with a grin, though his eyes shifted nervously. No, well, yes, I did, might have said that. But I mean, you seem close as your hero selves, and I mean, you and Carapace. What's this about Carapace? Alya cut in edgily. Leaning closer, she examined him suspiciously. Nothing. I was just saying you two are some of the only heroes I don't know the identities of. And now I know yours, but I didn't before. But it's all good, because we can trust each other. And Ladybug always makes great decisions, so there's nothing strange to worry about. Cat Noir shifted uneasily as Alya eyed him expectantly. You didn't even seem surprised when I revealed my Miraculous earlier. Well, that's because it made perfect sense that Ladybug would have trusted you with it, since you have been helping her from the very beginning. True. Alya held her gaze a moment longer, then chuckled warmly. Relax, Cat Noir. I know you can keep a secret. And besides, I'm kind of glad you know. Now I can interview you twice as much for the Lady blog. Cat Noir laughed too, though it seemed more from relief than anything else. Yeah, I guess, though I really have to get going, so no interviews tonight. Ladybug smiled wryly. I hate to break it to you, but I think it's daytime. Cat Noir glanced at the sky in alarm. Oh no, now I really have to go. Wait. He paused and turned back to her with a questioning smirk. Was that a pun, Bugaboo? Perhaps, she replied, tapping him lightly on the cheek. A special one, just for you. She knew Alya was gaping at her, but she didn't care. He was silly and ridiculous, but for some reason it meant a lot to him, and the delighted shine in his eyes made it worth all the embarrassment. Besides, after everything he had saved her from, it was the least she could do. Thank you for everything, Cat Noir. He smiled softly. I should be thanking you. You're the one who made this future possible and saved my life so many times. Ladybug shook her head. If it wasn't for you, I never would have made it past the first few minutes. So... She hesitated, then rose to her tiptoes and placed a gentle kiss on his cheek. Thank you for saving my life so many times, Cat Noir. Cat Noir appeared almost frozen, a light blush coloring the tips of a widening smile, when a voice startled them both, exclaiming, Now that is priceless! Ladybug spun around and glared at her friend, who was ardently clutching her phone between her hands and grinning wildly. Alya! Alya shrugged, though her eyes twinkled mischievously. Hey, that's what you get for not taking this somewhere other than a journalist's headquarters. There's no way you're posting that online. Ladybug made a dive for the phone, but Alya swerved it out of reach. Oh, come on, please! It's nothing embarrassing, it's just Ladybug thanking Cat Noir for saving her life. The public would go crazy over this. It's so sweet and endearing. Think of how happy it will make people. Think of all the acclimatizations it would prevent. Prevent? Have you forgotten about how crazy people can be? Think of that ice cream guy. Alya dodged away again and held up the phone in protest. But this is exactly what he and the rest of the city have been dying to see. Think of all the positive emotions it would create. My life is not something to plaster on a billboard, Alya, Ladybug exclaimed, lunging forward irritably as the girls tussled over the small device. Don't worry, m'lady, I got this, Cat Noir announced, whisking the phone away from Alya and stepping toward the window. Don't you dare cataclysm my phone, Cat Noir, Alya growled, a new level of malice and intensity filling her voice. Cat Noir flinched and smiled as he raised his fist cockily. I already used my cataclysm, and besides, I'm just going to defend my lady's honor and delete the photo. Wait! Both turned in surprise as Ladybug stretched out her hand pleadingly. She blushed, then crossed her arms as she tried to say casually, I mean, I'm sure we can trust Alya to delete the photo on her own, and you really should be going before your secret identity is revealed too. Oh, right. Here you go, I guess, Cat Noir said, dropping the phone into Alya's outstretched hands. Have a good morning, Alya, m'lady, he added with a bow, then jumped off his stick. Ladybug watched until he was out of sight, then turned to her friend, who was grinning smugly. You want a copy of that photo, don't you? Ladybug avoided her gaze and lifted her chin airily. Well, it is a picture of me, so I should be the one to have it. Alya raised an eyebrow knowingly. And the fact that you're kissing Cat Noir while he's staring at you with hard eyes has nothing to do with it. We were not kissing, Alya, Ladybug sputtered, her face burning almost as red as her suit as she threw out her arms defensively. I was just thanking him. with a very typical, very simple, friendly kiss on the cheek.
If you say so, girl. You know, you're starting to sound like your old self more and more.
Ladybug rolled her eyes, then glanced subtly back to the phone. Was he really looking at me with... just let me see it, Alya. Alya laughed good-naturedly and handed over the phone as Ladybug swiftly sent it to herself, then headed toward the window as her earrings beeped warningly. She was about to wave goodbye when Alya called after her. Are you sure I can't keep a copy of it too? Just in case you two ever do become official? Ladybug blushed and snorted a dry laugh, as if that'll ever happen. She lowered herself quietly over the window ledge, but then popped her head back up as her eyes twinkled with a sudden hopeful gleam and added, But okay, just in case. Ladybug ducked out of sight, heading back towards her house as a peaceful calm soothed the tremulous storm that had been whirling inside her only minutes before. Everything was going to be okay. She had saved everyone, including Cat Noir, with Alya's help, of course, and now she even had a special memory the two of them would share forever, in their memories and on Alya's hard drive. She felt a pleasing warmth caress her face as she relived the soft brush of her lips against his cheek, the small gasp that escaped her partner as his eyes widened in surprise, then relaxed into a blanket of tenderness as his lively green eyes stared deep into hers, and the way he had wrapped his hand over hers ever so gently as he gave it a heartfelt squeeze. If only her real self had seen the endearing goodness and selfless devotion she found in the charming hero that fought by her side. If only her real self had considered all they could have shared together. But perhaps this was a new start after all. Perhaps she could take her own advice and rebuild outside the limits of her former life. Perhaps she'd been given a precious and permanent second chance. Thanks for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day. This story was really hard to write because I had the main parts planned out, but I had most of the more dramatic, angsty parts in my head, and I wanted to get to them. But in order to do that, I had to build up the tension, and I kept just, I couldn't leave it like that after every time, so I had to make it somewhat happy, and so then it was just really hard to fight my inner happiness. Like, you're like, oh, that's a nice moment, and then have to, like, crush it all over again, like, oh, right, he has to die. And so, yeah, it took me a really long time to write this, and then it took me even longer to finally have some quiet to record this. But now I finally finished reading it, and hopefully I'll figure out a more quick and efficient process in the future. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to hear my little story. Hope it made you smile, and that you're not too, messed up after all that. I did try to give it a happy ending, so anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Have a great day. Bye.